Hi everyone, I'm Argentina Leyva. I am the owner of Art Seduction Boudoir Photography in Chicago and Austin. And today I just want to present to you this amazing video that I created with the manager of Rouge Boutique in Austin, Texas, an amazing lingerie boutique that caters to women pretty much of every body type and every size when it comes to lingerie. Quite often my clients bring corsets to their boudoir sessions, and I found that sometimes there's some problems when they don't choose the correct corset. It's very, very important that if you decide to get a corset, you know the difference of between different corset types and how to size yourself properly. Whether you go to a store, you know what to expect so they don't sell you the wrong size, which it happens a lot of times. My clients go to a store and the people there just giving the wrong size. Or they buy online and same thing, because they didn't know exactly what size they were, they also ordered the wrong thing. So without further ado, I want you to watch the following video where Asen from Rouge explains thoroughly all the different types of corsets, the pros and cons, and how to properly measure yourself and what is the best corset for your body type. I hope you enjoy it.
So we're here today to talk about corsets. My name is Asen, also Rouge Boutique, if you know me around town. I have been working in this industry for over 10 years, and my understanding of corsets is very fundamental and basic. So if you have any inquiries about corset diets or anything like that, or trying to do waist training the white way, I am not the person to ask about that. I am just here to help you figure out how to find the right corset that'll fit you, made of the right materials, and how to pretty much find a corset that'll actually benefit your body type to make sure you look your best. Of all the corsets that we have here, we have the three most common material made in terms of boning corsets that are manufactured in the world. The three types are Featherlight, which is the most common, and the second is spiral boning, which is not very common but fairly new, and then the most common of heavy duty would be steel boning. Steel boning is going to be the heaviest. It's going to offer the most grip on the body and do the most contouring of shape as well. Featherlight will be the lightest, will be the most comfortable, and you can move the easiest in it. Spiral boning is a combination of the two. It is super flexible like Featherlight, not too flexible, but still stiff enough to offer enough grip to create the shape that you want without being too heavy or uncomfortable like steel bone. These are Featherlight. Again, Featherlight on a hanger is incredibly light. It doesn't take much to hold it. It's also super, super flexible. Featherlight is basically just made out of plastic. With Featherlight corsetry, especially if you happen to have a large bust, a large heavy bust, Featherlight will not do anything for your bosom when in regards to looking your best in a photo shoot. If you're just wanting something to wear like a night on a town with a pair of jeans, you can get away with one of these, but again, if you have a large heavy bust, this is not going to do anything for you. Of the corsetry, they come in certain lengths. The most common would be overbust, underbust, waist cincher, and then waspy. I've got all these layers on, you can't tell. Overbust basically means over the bust. It comes up over your chest. Underbust means it comes under your bust, like directly under your bust. A waist cincher is pretty much the lower midsection of your rib cage, and the waspy is basically the lowest part of your ribs, where your floating ribs are in between your hip bones. Corsets also come short lined and long lined. Long line means it actually comes over your hips. Short line means it sits above your hips. Most corsets especially like these, are going to be short line. They mostly don't take into consideration, most feather-light corsets do not take into consideration, the makers of them anyway, do not take into consideration as to whether or not you have a long torso or a short torso. If you have a short torso, short line corsets will work best for you. If you have a long line torso, long line corsets will not look as good on you, especially if you're just wanting to wear the corset by itself with underwear. It'll be a very defining line between your hip area and your waistline. Well, your hip area and your panty line at your lower hips. This is considered a mid-long line. It covers the tops of the hips, doesn't take over the fullness of the hips. This is considered a long line corset, if you can see the difference. It's just a little bit longer than the other one. This one is featherlight, made with a reinforced canvas. This one is a steel boning made also with a taffeta lined canvas. Basically with materials, especially if you happen to be of a fuller body frame and have a heavier bust, this is a lightweight faux satin. You never want to wear this simply because it offers no support and offers no grip either. And when I mean grip, basically it adheres to your body to help shape it. Basically, most featherlight corsets are for the sake of looking like a corset, but not functioning like a corset. So if you're wanting an actual grip that will shape your silhouette while you're in it, you always want to go with either spiral boning or steel boning. If you don't want steel boning, always find a spiral boning made with a heavy-duty canvas. Even if the boning is not super strong, as long as the material is really sturdy, you can get some shape out of it. Anything like this, not so much. Anything made like this, pretty much so. And basically the inside of it is this. Canvas is like super textured. It looks rough, but it's actually pretty soft. And then there are canvases that are a little bit stronger than this. Out there as well on something that's spiral boning like this one. This one is actually a spiral bone corset. It has some flexibility, but it's not as super flexible as featherlight. And then also taking consideration of the closures of your corset. This one is called I believe a Basque teeth closure. This type of closure, once it's locked in place and you tie your corset is not coming off. It's not going to undo itself. It's not going to slip out of place. However, when you do hook it, you have to be sure to either hook it from the bottom down, the top down, or the bottom up. Never start in the center and try and do it from here and up or here and down. You have to pick one and go up, pick one or go down. On most featherlights, they will use bra, hook, and eye teeth like this. This is probably the most obnoxious of closures for corsets because there's so many to deal with, and if you also happen to have a difficulty in articulating your hand movements, if you have any type of nerve damage or anything like that, hello, this would probably be the worst type of closure to actually utilize. And if you should be preparing for a boudoir photo shoot, the stylist will have to help you get in it as well. And if you have a large bust, this is also very difficult to maneuver around as well. So this is again a straight across short lined overbust. The one thing to take into consideration when it comes to corsets and your breasts is that corsets do not, especially if you pay attention to like figures, if it was imaginary or not, figments like Jessica Rabbit. She's got a corseted style dress on and everything. Most people who wear corsets, it's a sweetheart top, you think you're going to get like this big, beautiful, voluptuous round shape. That's only going to happen if your breasts are incredibly large and defiant, or they're large, defiant, and fake. With most corsetry, especially a straight line corset, it's going to compress your breast to your body and push it up to your neck to make the heaving bosom effect. Hey, lady! To make the heaving bosom effect, basically, the heaving bosom is basically, it just elevates it over up to your collarbone, so then you just have these big, full pillows. for your bust. So basically your silhouette is going to get incredibly straight here, and then your bust is going to pretty much float up here. So when wearing corset or trying on corsets, don't be discouraged about whether or not your bust has disappeared from your body. It's just been pushed up to your neck. The one thing about corsets you have to keep in mind is that corsets, when they're constricted on the body, especially if they're steel bone corsets, the meat of your body has to go somewhere. It's either going to go up and over, or it's going to go down and out. And the other thing to take into consideration as well is your breast, especially if you have a larger breast, continue all the way to your back. So if you try on a corset and suddenly you have what's called back fat spilling over, that's not fat, that's the rest of your breast. That's common. There's no way to avoid it, except maybe with Photoshop. And it happens to everyone, even the smallest body. It even happens as well. Especially even if they don't have a bust, that will still happen. Because again, when you're constricting the body, meat has to go somewhere, either up and over or out or down and out. So don't fret so much about that. And then there is this one, which is a straight line across spaghetti strap corset. These corsets are normally for women who have, or at least anything that's strapped like this is normally for women who have really large busts that will not contain themselves behind something that is a super straight line. If you have, like, let's say, anywhere from like a very full D, even up to a triple D, and you're trying to wear one of these, you're going to have to worry about nipple slippage in something like this, especially if you decide to wear it out in public. Anything like this, because it's compressing your breast to your chest and pushing it up towards your neck, you're going to have to worry about basically bending over and spilling out. If you don't want to pretty much risk that, then you find something that has sleeves. It helps contain things in, almost like a restrictive muscle shirt for ladies, but not. So because of this wide triangle here, it offers a little bit more support and gathers the breast in the center panel. So then it pulls the breast in forward and makes your cleavage a lot deeper and bigger. And also, if you bend over, it keeps spillage from happening as well. And then other corsetry. So then again, this is again an overbust. This corset we have. This is a steel bone straight across sleeveless short line corset. Again, short line, it sits over the hips, so it's not going to cover the hips. So if you have like some tummy issues that you're trying to confine, always try and go for a long line corset to help confine everything in. But also take into consideration that not all long lines will help contain tummy issues if you should have any that you're trying to conceal. Always the best thing to pair with either a short line corset or with a long line corset, especially if your stomach hangs a little bit lower than your actual pubic area, is also taking consideration of pairing your shorts with, or not your shorts, your corset with either Spanx, very plain Spanx, either flesh tone colored or black, and then find a lacy panty to wear over it. Wearing lacy panties over foundation wear, especially like Spanx if you're trying to control your hip and tummy area, adds texture and makes the Spanx less visible and makes the illusion of Spanx pretty much invisible. Also, it's easiest to do if you get Spanx that have a thong in the back, because then you can wear any type of underwear with the Spanx without having to worry about whether or not the hem of your panties matches up with the hem of the Spanx. So thong Spanx as foundation wear during photo shoots is probably the best thing that you can use, and then put any type of panty that you find aesthetically appealing on top. This is a long line overbust. Most long lines, this one's made in Europe, so most European long lines will have hip guards on them, basically to help round the hips and help shape the body as well. And this one sits directly underneath the bust, so it just rides just below the bosom. And this one again is steel boning. This one is also made with a taffeta canvas mixture with a scrawl brocade in the front. So this is a very heavy duty combination of materials. So also because it's steel boning, you'll get your grip, and then because of the shape or the material that's been utilized in this one, you'll get a very, very flawless, seamless shape, and it's very strong, so you can tie it pretty tight on yourself. So it's long.
Tell me more about that one. Where do you put that on? Under your breast?
Yeah, this one goes, let me take your phone and show you where it goes. So you hold it up to yourself. So basically, yeah, let me take the hanger off. Oh, sorry. So the underbust sits right there, directly under the bust. Why it's called an underbust.
So who should use, what do you do for the breasts?
So people, basically underbusts are best for women who are, especially if you're on a time crunch, like most people who wait till the last minute for finding things, or have only basically been searching for a long time and they have no other options. Underbusts are more so the best work for women who have small breasts but a fuller body, and because most overbusts, well, if you have small breasts, it will not fit around the top because it's got a concave pocket to help fit some of the breast to fill and also help contour and shape. But if you have a small bust and you have a pocketed over bust, it's not going to help you at all because it's going to leave this pocket of space that's not flattering. So if you have a small bust, then an underbust will be your best friend. You can pair it with a bralette, a beautiful top, pasties, a push-up bra. If you're still wanting a corseted figure but your breasts are not basically being included in that equation. Also, if you have really large breasts, and most overbust corsets will not be able to contain them, or the shape of your breast, or at least the size of your breast, which this does also happen often, is that depending on the size of your breast, it affects how tight you can close the corset. So if you already have kind of like a wide bandwidth, and then you have a large bust on top of that, trying to get the corset closed as possible, that is traditionally acceptable in the back of corset, which is normally, my hands are small, so basically think 4-finger width and dude hands. So think of your husband or your boyfriend's hands or your brother's hands. It's a big 4 fingers width are usually what expected of exposure in the back. Anything wider, your corset is too small. If your corset comes closed all the way together, it's too big, and it's time to either find a corset that actually fits you if it's too closed all the way, or you might have to think about, especially if you're super in love with that corset, think about layering your corset as well. But if your corset is closed all the way, you're not getting any gripping or cinching power out of it because it's too big. Mm-hmm. So again, if you have a small bust, an underbust works. If you have a very large bust, an underbust works as well. However, if you're wanting a corset that offers support, you're probably going to have to invest in getting a corset that is one size a little bit bigger, depending on how much bigger your cups are, or invest in, again, a really, really nice bra and an underbust. The next corset type that they make, or that is made, is a waspy. Waspies are pretty much offer the most severe of silhouettes in all of the corset kingdom. Waspies, basically by the name itself, makes you look like a wasp. It focuses mostly on the space between your floating ribs, which hang your lower 2 ribs, and the space between your hips. It does not contain the hips. It does not also contain your rib cage either, except for your floating ribs. It gives you a very, very sharp, cinched look. If you're trying to get something that's more seamless and fluid, I would avoid waspies. If you like the severe cut of something of a severe definition between your rib cage and your hips, and like a very, very tight space between that, then you would go with a waspy. Again, waspies make you look like wasps. And
so for that, you have a bra and panties under that, right?
Yeah, for this one, you could wear it over a long gown if you wanted to wear it out. But if you're doing it for a photo shoot, It would be best if you mixed it with a bra and panty set, or a bra and then gown set as well, especially if the gown is not necessary. It's just a separate top and a separate bottom. And then this one is simply so tiny. This one is a short line underbust as well. Basically, it sits over your hips, sits above your hips, and then it goes up to just below your your middle two rears below your ribs, below your bust. So it's basically the midsection of your ribs and down to the top parts of your hips, or just above your hips. And this is also, again, another option for anyone who has a large bust, not being able to find a corset that'll fit their bust. They can't find an over bust, or women with a small bust who can't fill an over bust. So this is also a good option. Again, this one is a high satin, steel bone waist cincher as well. So, of course, with steel boning, it doesn't bend very much at all, except only to help with shaping the body. The one thing to keep in consideration, or keep in mind with when trying on corsets or trying to function in corsets, is that sitting down becomes probably the most impossible thing to do. You sit down like robots, your posture is straight. Bending down to pick something up pretty much turns you into a human elevator, and then you have to come back up and pick it up. Bending down like this turns you into a robot, so keep that all in mind. You can't necessarily curve your lower body when you're wearing a corset. So if you're also looking into corsetry for correcting your posture, that also helps too. And then one thing that many people usually confuse corsets with are with bustiers. These are bustiers. Bustiers are the look of a corset offering no functionality of a corset. A featherlight can semi-function like a corset. It can offer minimal contouring, but not much. Bustiers offer no contouring. This is a featherlight bustier, and again, any corset that's made out of mesh, as you can tell, is not going to help with drawing anything in or creating a shape or contouring of any kind. This is basically for the look of a corset, not the act or the function of a corset. Many bustiers will come with a shoestring lace, a flat shoestring lace, or they will come with bra hooks in the back. Again, bustiers don't offer any cinching power whatsoever. And again, if it's made of mesh, it's not going to cinch anything. It's going to be very delicate and very fragile. So trying to pretty much get the grip of God out of it is impossible. And this one and other corsets or bustiers made with ribbons don't lace much. If you find corsets that have satin ribbons like this, they are not meant to be pulled on, because when you're trying to cinch it, you're only going to break the ribbon. And that's only going to lead to difficulties, especially if it has a cloth lacing mechanism like this. You can't cinch anything, because all you're going to do is just rip holes and destroy the bustier. So bustiers don't offer any type of cinching power like corsets do. Basically, if you wanted something, but you're also on a budget, because steel boning corsets are pretty expensive, featherlight is your best bet to survive even probably the semi-brutal of cinching. Other bustier options, again, mesh, especially if it's all mesh. Again, mesh will not offer any type of structural support or any type of cinching power whatsoever. If you're just wanting to be comfortable in something that looks like a corset, bustiers are your best friend. However, most bustiers are not necessarily support friendly. So if you have very large breasts and you're wanting to wear a bustier, most bustier cups, especially American-made lingerie brands, will not actually be very forgiving or considerate or even very concerned with larger bust sizes in bustiers, especially if it's pre-cupped like this. So if you happen to be like, this cup may fit a full D, small double D. If you're like a full double D up to a triple D, this is not going to do anything for you. Basically, your breast is going to be spilling out in all the wrong ways possible, and it's not going to be very flattering. So take in consideration when dealing with any type of corsetry or bustiers that have cups, make sure the cup actually fits. You don't want to have to sacrifice support and perfect fit and shape and also aesthetic for a small cup. And then again, here is another one. This one is an embroidered lace mesh combination with flight satin as well. Again, hook and eyelets in the back. It's not going to work. All corsets lace in the back to offer cinching and power, even with feather lace as well. And again, with corsetry, if you happen to have a large bust and you're looking for support, racerbacks are also a good option as well. Racerbacks pretty much gather in the back and then waterfall out over the shoulders and then gather in the front. If you can see the picture of how it looks as well. So with racerbacks, if you have a large bust and you're also trying to make a very generous cleavage, racerbacks are the best corsets to go for, as well as it offers support all the way up the back as well, especially if you have a heavy bust. It helps with keeping things contained, offering support for your lower back as well, and offering some stitching power. This again is a feather light with a canvas. This is a very heavy embossed canvas, so even though it is feather light, you can still get some grip out of it as well. When you are about to go online or trying to figure out what your size is in corsetry, if you've never worn a corset, the best place to look at the size of your bra, and you go by bandwidth more so than you do by cup. And what I mean by bandwidth, I'll use this as an example, is basically the band of your cup. And your bandwidth basically exclude your breast from the equation and get a tape measure and measure underneath your bust. That is your bandwidth of your bras. But with most bras, you also have to include your bust as well. So it's basically from the heaviest hang of your breast across and around your back. That is your full bust size. But for your under bust bandwidth, it is just below your breast. So when you're trying to figure out what size corset you wear, the one thing to take into consideration is that a large majority of corsets are not made, or at least are not sized with your waist in mind. It's basically best to look for a corset, especially an over bust, with your bust in mind, not your waist. Because if you're looking for your waist, then you basically should just stick to a waspy. But if you're looking to wear a full corset from the top of your chest to the bottom of your hips, you want to go with a full corset. You want to take into consideration your full bust. Never assume that, oh, I'm wearing a corset, I just need to measure my waist, that's all that's important. No, it's this part of your body is the most important, especially in an over bust. Because if it fits here, it doesn't fit here, then you pretty much bought the wrong corset. And if it's an online purchase, you've wasted a lot of time and money, especially if you're buying most corsets from China, which are usually the cheapest corsets to get, because they're not necessarily made of the best material or the strongest boning, and again, they're cheap and inexpensive. So when you're buying online, again, just look to the size of your bra to find out what your size is. If you're the type of person who has a large breast, they spend most of their time wearing sports bras, all you would need to do is probably go to a place like, if you're in Austin, like Petticoat Fair, and have them size you for a bra. They're pretty much the most professional and the most accurate place in Austin for helping you figure out what size of a bra you actually need to be wearing, especially if you do not have common bust sizes. And what I mean by common bust size is basically anything over a double D. So if you're like a E or a G or an H or a triple F, I would recommend going to Petticoat Fair for understanding and finding out what your actual size is to figure out how you can be accommodated when it comes to corsetry. So when you're going online, and let's say you have a size I bust and a 36-inch bandwidth, finding something like that in Austin, or at least in a brick and mortar store, is going to be incredibly difficult because you have a large cup and a small rib cage, especially if it's vice versa, where you have a small cup and a large rib cage. It's going to be very hard to find something to accommodate in an over bust, so you'd have to go look online, and most likely you would have to look for somebody who specializes in making made-to-wear corsetry. There's ready-to-wear corsetry, which it all comes in one size, already made, and they have a certain quantity of them, and you just guess what size it is you need. If you're in that traditional weight range of a 32 up to a 46, and your bust isn't any bigger than a D between a full B and a large double D, then you can get a corset. But if, again, you have a small bandwidth and a large cup, or a large bandwidth and a small cup, finding something already made for you that will fit well is going to be practically impossible. So you have to look into finding people who make corsets custom to adhere to your body type, your bust, your bandwidth, and any other measurements that you want to take into consideration as well. Again, with finding people who do custom corsets, again, that's going to be expensive, but in the long run, it's actually worth it to get a custom corset if you're wanting to wear a corset in a photo shoot, or just wear a corset again sometime later on in your life. Always get one that fits, and always get one that's made well so it lasts as long as you do. With this one, especially with corset dresses, this is the Ophelia by Valeska. This is a size 44. This is made with a combination of lace, cotton lining, embroidered canvas with stuffed hip peplums for making the hourglass of your body a little bit more exaggerated if you have one, or if you have a very straight and narrow body, it helps with inputting a shape if you don't really have much of one due to your bone structure. This one is something like this is mostly made with a light seal boning or a spiral boning, so it doesn't have a lot of boning in it. But something like this, if you want to do a photo shoot, this is also a good option as well. The only difference is that you can't necessarily alter it unless you happen to be a professional costume maker or alterer and everything. But something like this you could also work with as well, especially if you have very Renaissance style dreams. And then, again, with materials with your corsets, make sure they're strong and sturdy if you're wanting a corset to be strong and sturdy on you. If you happen to have, and the one thing about corsets, also keep your bone structure in mind. If you are like many women, under the impression that if you put a corset on, you'll immediately have an hourglass figure, that is not necessarily true. Depending on your bone structure and also your muscle mass and then fat ratio as well, if your bone structure does not dictate an hourglass shape, you do not have an hourglass shape when you put on a corset. There are A-line body shapes, there are round body shapes, there are apple bottom body shapes, there are very broad-shouldered body shapes, narrow-hipped body shapes, triangular, square, and S shapes as well. If you happen to have a round chest, or as we call it, barrel chest, you definitely do not have an hourglass if you also have narrow hips. If you have a barrel chest and wide hips, you don't have an hourglass shape, you have a pear shape. It means you're fuller on the bottom, narrow on top. Also, your shoulders might be a little bit narrow too. Many people who happen to have a round chest or a barrel chest also have very, very narrow shoulders as well. Broad shoulders on a barrel chest body shape is not very common, but it does happen. Anyone that's carrot shaped, basically you're round on top and you just get thinner towards the bottom. An hourglass shape is not something you have either. If you're barrel chested, if you are carrot shaped, if you have a very square figure as well, big or small, waspies and underbusts will be your best friend. But waspies will help give you a greater silhouette in your waistline and your hips, because again, it creates a severe shape. It also will help contour a waistline as well, especially if you happen to have a very close-knit rib cage and a close-knit hip hip bones and everywhere, where they're like kind of right on top of each other, and there's not enough space to actually help concave your body around it. If you are hourglass shaped, under busts will work, over busts will work as well, especially if you're trying to make your hips look bigger and your shoulders look broader as well, especially if you have narrow shoulders. Anything waspy will also help with making your shoulders look a little bit wider as well. If you are apple bottom shaped with a short torso, under busts will be your best friend as well. Not long line, short line under bust, because if you have a short torso, a long line under bust or even a long line over bust will cut too far into your hip sockets to where you can't lift your legs up very well or sit down comfortably or even bend over. So keep in mind whether or not you also have a long torso or a short torso as well when looking for corsetry. What else?
I think that's it. I think the shapes, what you recommend for each shape was very, very important. When somebody should just not consider at all a corset.
Oh, okay. Oh, when corset is not an option?
Yeah, it's just not a good idea.
When it comes to corsets, not being a good idea when it just does not work out is, one, when you can't find the size you need. Two, you can't find you find the corset in the size you need, but it's not made in a material that is sturdy enough to help shape you or even help offer any support of any kind. Do not get a corset. Do not settle on a corset do not settle on a corset you find that fits, but it doesn't fit well. If it doesn't fit well, don't get it. If it doesn't fit its best, don't get it. If you're a hardcore, like in need of getting a corset, then get a good corset. You might have to invest in getting one offline from overseas or finding someone in town that can custom make you a corset. But other than that, there are a lot of occasions where a corset is just not an option. One, it doesn't fit. Two, it's too short. Three, it's too small. Four, it's too big. It's not made of the right materials. The lacings aren't correct. The type of eyelets in the front, the hook and eye closures aren't correct either. Basically, if there are more cons in your corset than there are pros, then don't get it. Usually the rule of thumb, if there are 3 cons in a corset, it's not worth getting. So and also take consideration your body shape as well. If you are probably much smaller than me, you will not feed a corset. It's just not going to happen, even if you find a corset or a waspy to try and fill. Basically trying to get any type of contouring from it is not going to happen. And also, if you happen to have a very, very large bust, a corset is not going to help with that. And even if you invest in an under bust as well for a corset, you also take consideration what kind of bra you'll be wearing with it, and trying to find bras that are made to adhere to a very non-traditional size, especially a very large size. The under bust may not match your bra, and in trying to find color matchings of your bras and your under bust will be also very impossible as well, and also a lot of money if you want to get them dyed. Hello! And then also a corset is not necessarily going to be in your best interest if your bone structure and your body type dictates that you can't get anything aesthetically or comfortably or even appealing out of the corset as well. So basically, if you have a round chest and straight hips, you're not going to get an hourglass or any type of indentation in your corset. If you even have a fused spine, I would probably recommend not getting a corset as well. Or if you have any type of body braces, corsetry may not work as well unless you find someone who makes medical corsets. If you have a medical condition with your upper torso, with your spine or your ribs, there are people who make beautiful medical corsets. However, medical grade corsetry is also incredibly expensive as well. Don't ever think about using waist trainers as corsetry. Waist trainers are usually made out of rubber or latex or really like high sweat content materials that are not appealing whatsoever. And if you wear them under certain garments, because of the material they're made out of, they will not allow the garments you wear over it to hang in a way that looks well at all. And again, most of them are made to make you sweat. So if you're trying to do a boudoir photo shoot and you're wearing a waist trainer, you're just going to be spending the entire shoot sweating. So don't entertain waist trainers for corset wear in a boudoir photo shoot. It's just a bad idea.
Yep, I think you want to wrap it up and give the information about the store.
But with corsets, basically again, keep in mind your body shape, your bust, what type of corset you're looking for, what your pros and cons with your body are. Basically, if you have a small bust, if you have a large bust, whether or not you are trying to contain your bust in a corset, whether or not you're trying to accentuate your waistline more so in your bust or anything like that. Keep in mind what types of corsets there are. Keep in mind what kind of corset, what kind of grip, what kind of silhouette you're trying to make. Also keep in mind what it is you're wearing with your corset, if you're wearing your corset by itself, if you'll be wearing it with anything else. Also, color matching is also a very difficult thing, especially if your materials are satins versus cottons or canvases or embroideries or anything like that. There are all types of corsets out there. Again, keep in mind what it is you want. Also, the length of your torso, short line, long torso, short torso. Waspies, waist cinchers, under busts. And also, if you're looking for corsetry that is actual foundation wear, basically you wear it under your clothing. Many of these corsets that we carry are basically not meant to be worn as foundation wear. Basically, they have to be worn either standalone or on top of something, not necessarily under your clothes, simply because there's a lot of texture on them, and also there's a lot of lacing. Oh, and another important thing, if you get a corsets come with long strings for a reason. Don't ever cut your corset strings because you will regret it. They give you this much string to ensure that you have enough pull for gripping your silhouette and cinching it down and everything. Do not cut your strings. You'll regret it. Trying to find 49-inch or 48-inch to 54-inch long corset strings is the most difficult thing in the world. And settling on shoestrings is also not a good idea either. But yeah, basically these are what we carry at Rouge Boutique. Any of the corsets that we have from the Burlesque brand, which ships from the UK, we can get in other colors and designs as well. Again, they ship on a slow boat from the UK, so it might take forever to get it. Strong canvases are also a good alternative if you're wanting a light boning, but you still want something sturdy enough to offer some contouring and some silhouette shaping. And that's pretty much about it. The Rouge Boutique, we're located near downtown off of I-35 northbound between 32nd and 38th and a half Street.
In Austin, Texas.
Ta-da!
Hi, welcome back. I really hope that you now have a better understanding about how to properly select the correct corset for your boudoir session. If you are ready to book a boudoir session with Art of Seduction, either in my studios in Chicago or Austin, you can directly contact me by visiting my website at www.artofseductionchicago.com. And if you want to go shopping in Le Rouge, I highly recommend them. I'm sure you will find something to your taste, and they will definitely help you select the proper lingerie for your body type and your body size, and obviously for your taste. They are located in Austin, Texas, on the frontage road of Interstate 35, pretty much across the street from University of Texas. You can visit their website at lerougeboutique.com. You guys have a great day, and I hope to see you in the studio pretty soon.